from the people of Cuba. We are in the presence of Cuba's Foreign Affairs Minister, His Excellency Bruno Rodriguez. We align ourselves with these statements made by the delegations of Uganda on behalf of the non-aligned movement, by Iraq on behalf of the G77 and China, by Honduras on behalf of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, and by Eritrea on behalf of the Group of Friends in Defense of the United Nations Charter. Mr. President, 1 more year has elapsed of the economic, commercial, and financial embargo imposed by the United States against the sisterly Republic of Cuba. We've had 1 more year of many breaches of the overwhelming decisions made by this General Assembly. In accordance with the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law, this Assembly has roundly rejected the blockade and has called tirelessly for its lifting. This blockade is a protracted and inhumane attack designed not only to suffocate the economy of a country, but also to see its people yield and fall on their knees. However, despite the cruel nature of this collective punishment and the grave consequences it's had for the people's development, the Cuban people keep resisting. They face deprivation that no nation deserves to withstand, and this in the midst of the 21st century. Consequently, Bolivia condemns in the very strongest terms this unjustifiable policy, a policy which is a mass, flagrant and systematic violation of human rights, the most basic human rights that should be enjoyed by a people. Myriad bodies and experts view this embargo as an act of economic war aimed towards a genocide, because it affects all productive sectors of the country's economy, such as construction, tourism, transport, civil air engineering, the industry, etc. The extrajudicial application of laws under the Helms-Burton Act means that businesses, vessels, and ships are persecuted. That is, vessels sending fuel and other essential inputs to the country. Not only does this violate Cuba's sovereignty, but also undermines the Cuban people's right to self-determination, and it hampers efforts made by its government to fight against poverty and inequality. In practical terms, what we're seeing is a threat to multilateralism and a transgression of international trade law and international laws regarding the freedom of navigation. Bolivia is committed to the principles of the UN Charter and of international law and convinced of their importance. Once again, we join the international community to condemn and repudiate in the very strongest possible terms the unilateral, immoral, and criminal economic, commercial, and financial embargo that has now been in place for more than half a century. It's been imposed by the United States against our sisterly Cuba. President, Excellencies, moreover, my country condemns the systematic interventionist initiatives seen by the hegemonic power. They claim the authority to draw up unilateral lists of sovereign countries. We demand that the State Department of the U.S. withdraw the Republic of Cuba from their list of state sponsors of terrorism without delay, because them being on that list has ratcheted up the blockade and stopped Cuba from integrating into international trade and stopped them from conducting financial operations. Mr. President, the adoption and implementation of unilateral coercive measures as a geopolitical weapon and instrument of economic coercion hampers the full enjoyment of all human rights. It works against independence, sovereignty, and the right of self-determination of the peoples. For 30 years, this General Assembly has been adopting resolution after resolution, demanding that the governments of the United States end unconditionally their policy of an embargo against Cuba. The disregard for these resolutions demonstrates that there are countries that have gained through this decision. They don't respect the decisions that don't suit them, but they otherwise comply with resolutions of the General Assembly. In light of the above, Mr. President, Bolivia will support and vote in favor of the draft resolution that today is put before this Assembly because we reject this immoral economic, commercial and financial embargo, but we also call for and demand that the inhumane unilateral embargo imposed by the United States be lifted immediately. The struggle of the Cuban people is also one of Latin America and the Caribbean, and it is a struggle of all the peoples of the world. Thank you.